Okay, great. Good afternoon, everybody. Today is June 22nd, 2025, and thank you on this sweltering day for joining the Lady Liberty League, where we promote trusted, verified data sources and trusted, high-quality speakers. I'm Sue Dorichko, and I'm the co-founder of the Lady Liberty League, along with my other two co-founders, Laura Hudak and Tom Early. Today, we are pleased to host Dan Crowder, who will discuss creating a unified goal in a nonpartisan effort that works best for the community. Dan Crowder is a seasoned Democratic political operative based in Mentor, Ohio, with over a decade of hands-on experience in electoral strategy. A graduate of Kent State University, Crowder specialized in demographic research, focusing on the ways labels, both societal and self-identified, shape voter behavior, identity politics, and decision-making biases. And I apologize, I'm just going to try to mute everyone. If you are not muted, please mute your microphones. Tom, maybe you can help me with this one. Okay, great. I think it is muted now. Okay, great. Where did I leave off in your bio here?
Through my education,
Got it.
I'm a demographic study. Yes.
Got it. You got a great bio, so all of it robust and dynamic. Crowder has held pivotal roles across the political spectrum, managing and advising campaigns at the local, county, state, and federal levels. He served as election technology specialist for the Lake County Board of Elections, where he earned certifications from the Department of Homeland Security and the Cyber Security and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, CISA, reinforcing this commitment to election integrity and secure voting systems. In 2022, he co-founded Virtual Campaigner, an innovative political software company aimed at equipping candidates with cutting-edge digital tools designed to take the place or erase the burden of campaign managers and campaign staff. As the company's director of content and strategy, he helped develop resources and messaging frameworks used by candidates across Ohio and beyond. An advocate for youth political engagement, Crowder served as president of the Lake County Young Democrats from 2019 until their evolution into Future Forward Lake County, where he now acts as chapter governor. Known for his blend of data-driven insight and grassroots experience, Crowder continues to be a trusted strategist in Democratic politics throughout the Midwest, having also previously served as the Young Democrats of America Midwest Communications Director. Future Forward Lake County is a political action committee committed to building a new generation of progressive leadership in Northeast Ohio. Founded with the belief that sustainable change begins with empowered young and fresh minds, Future Forward mobilizes and amplifies young voices to shape a more equitable and inclusive future, while also providing a pipeline for talented people to make their way into the political landscape. Through dynamic programming rooted in education, advocacy, and community service, the organization cultivates emerging leaders and equips them with the tools to influence policy, engage voters, and drive grassroots actions to campaign and volunteer trainings designed to build up each member. Future Forward fosters a culture of active citizenship and public service across Lake County and beyond. What began as a reimagining of the Lake County Young Democrats has evolved into a bold, forward-thinking platform for civic leadership for those of us willing to put in the hard work in the planning. By centering equity, inclusion, and progress, Future Forward Lake County is not just preparing the next generation for leadership, it's putting them at the forefront of change. Future Forward also has a chapter in Cuyahoga County. Future Forward Cuyahoga, led by Sydney Leitner Canaday, that together with Lake County forms the Future Forward Alliance, a partnership committed on sharing resources, personnel, and data to best make an impact in our region of the state, a partnership growing in the near future. Future Forward has a deep commitment to developing accessible political pipelines, creating clear pathways for young progressives, first-time candidates, and aspiring staffers to get involved, make an impact, and rise through the ranks of public service, whether through mentorship, training, or direct electoral support. Future Forward is building infrastructure for lasting civic engagement across Northeast Ohio. And I do want to let a couple more people into the waiting room. And I do want to just mention before I hand the stage over to you, Dan, and I don't know how you want to lead your presentation, but it sounds to me like Future Forward has a focused intentionality of placing the candidates and the people in a more proactive, hands-on role, giving them more of a seat at the table instead of maybe a more traditional approach of paying your dues and learning and repeating messaging. It's more of a collaborative.
Yeah, I'd like to touch on that first. First, thank you, Sue, Laura, and everyone with the Lady Liberty League for having me here today. On Sue's first point, our biggest focus has been, my biggest focus has been over the last 5-6 years, is getting there to be opportunities for people to get involved at the ground level and then decide what is the best path for them. What we've seen time and time again in youth-based organizing is sort of telling anyone who wants to get involved, here's the track that you have to go upon. Here is the script. Here is what you have to do. Here's the checklist that you have to meet to be involved. And if you don't meet this checklist, well, we'll phase you out. Future Forward's against that. Our core principle is creating a pipeline for people to get involved with that can lead them into wherever their destination is in terms of political involvement. Whether that is, hey, I just want to be involved to make an impact in my community. I just want to be a volunteer. I just want to show up. I want to help out. That's great. And that's awesome. And that's what we want to see. We also want to see people that want to step up and take on leadership roles and do the work and do the planning and organize other young people, other people that are mindful that the next generation is where change is going to come from. And then additionally, we want to see people that want to run for office, that want to be that change, that want to have that public role, that want to take on that additional step. We do have, I do always have an expectation of any member when they come to me and say, hey, I want to take that step up. I'll always say, there's a lot of work involved. We're here for you. We have the resources. We have the information. We have the experience. We have plenty of great, well-knowledgeable people that are members of Future Forward that we will have as a resource for you. But at the end of the day, it says a lot about our politics in general, is that we want people that are going to do the work. It's not about doing the work for the organization. It's about doing the work for yourself.
So more about creating understanding rather than creating a legacy of, maybe not at the risk of sounding negative, but I'm just recognizing it's understanding versus ego.
Yes. It's if you are able to come in and you want to apply yourself. I don't want to say just do the work. It's applying yourself. Mm-hmm. We're a space for that. We want to be a space for this. That's what we were as the Lake County Young Democrats too, was a space for you to come in and get involved however you like. I used to brag to other chapters in the state. I know I'm the only president that has a college Republican's president as a member. And I knew that. because that's the work that we did. And we had people that said, you know what, I don't like the way the first Trump administration was going on. And we were an open door for people to get involved. And we were an open door for people to, and I don't want to blame this person in particular because he has become a great friend of mine, but to learn from the mistakes of the past and grow and adapt and get into a new space. So, we try to avoid the trappings of the old way of doing things, is I guess the best way to put it. We're trying to, as our name suggests, look to the future and move forward towards it.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Thank you. And thank you for speaking more to the purpose and the mission and the vision of Future Forward. It's definitely commendable to allow the space for dedicated, well-intended, hard-working young people to get their hands in the clay of the creation, right? And to have a seat at the table and to help shape and form the society that they would like to live in and their future generations would like to live in.
No, of course. And it's a challenge, right? I know there's going to be plenty of people here when we get into questions that are going to ask questions about how do we get young people to do X? How do we get young people to do Y? How do we get young people to, because I get that question everywhere. I just a couple weeks ago, I gave a similar talk to the Geauga Democrats, and that was the whole thing, is how do we get young people involved? How do we get young people to join the party? And I always try to reframe the question is, you don't want to ask, how can we? You have to ask, why aren't young people doing this? What are the barriers? What are the limitations? And with Future Forward, our goal has been to reduce those barriers every way which we can. Part of the reason why we don't have the name Democrats in our name is because we don't want to limit ourselves just to people who identify as members of the Democratic Party, because there are plenty of people on the left who have felt turned away, that we want to say, hey, you can come in. We want you as a part. There's plenty of people who are on the right who say, I don't feel like I have a home right now. And we want to say, hey, come over here. As long as you agree with us on some of our core principles and you want to be a part of the room and you want to sit at the table, we want to make sure that you have that seat available to you.
And if we cast a wide net through all of what I consider at 51 years old and a Gen Xer myself, if I want to cast a wide net to all of the younger generations from millennials to Y to X to Alpha, capturing all of their lived life experiences from where I sit and what I can see, I would quantify it best as their most formative years coming into adulthood and young adulthood were formed by climate fear, instability, misinformation, polarization in communities, divided houses. We have homes where maybe husband is Republican and wife is Democrat, and growing up not only in that divisive chaos, but also growing up in an era where we are all so dependent on technology, socially, professionally, and other, and it does create a certain level of disconnect. And going back to those times that I was privileged to grow up in, where you sit around a table and have coffee and share ideas across generations, young, our seniors, middle, maybe it's at a Sunday table at breakfast after church, or maybe it is, at an event or a party that involves family and neighborhood and community. I fear that we created a world that we have deprived this young generation out of those opportunities and having really good quality conversations and connections.
Yeah, I think I don't want to place blame on any broad group. I have an issue with saying a generalized statement, but I think there definitely can be some finger pointing when it comes to knowing when it's time to drop the reins, I guess is the way to put
Mhm.
it. Because we can look at, like you say, in the past, a husband and wife being of opposite political parties, very seldom that matter. But I can point to more than a few occasions what we saw in the 50s and 60s, where there were political disagreements in families between very basic things like equal rights, right? That existed in previous generations. We can look at, I'm not going to go through a checklist, but you can see in the decades different conflicts where I always have tried to harken it back to a piece of culture is Cormac McCarthy's No Country for Old Men, where the name doesn't necessarily make sense to a person on first viewing. Why is this story of a person who comes across a drug deal gone bad in the desert, finding a suitcase full of money and being chased by a hitman? What does that have to do with the name No Country for Old Men? It's because that individual had his life, and on the path of his life, never was this chaos going to cross his path. And then, out of nowhere, by accident, the chaos has been introduced into his life, and his life has completely changed. You mentioned technology. The reason why things seemingly are getting worse is because we're seeing so much more of it, because we can see things in a second. There's not a delay of, well, the news is going to come on in a couple hours, I'll know then, or the paper will be on my driveway at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. That doesn't exist anymore in the way that it did before. It's there, but if you want an answer right now, if you want a discussion right now, you can see it. Last night, I was able to get minute by minute updates with current events going on across the globe that does not exist in another period of time based outside of the 21st century where we are right now. So when we see that conflict within families, when we see this sort of partisanship bleed into the family lifestyle, it's important to always remember is that that's still your family. And that needs to be said to both sides. That's still your family. I have strong disagreements with my own father, who is not very political. He votes mainly the way that I'd ask him to. He'll have some issues as he's had in past elections, but he won't vote, as he calls it, for stupid people. But we can have disagreements and arguments, but at the end of the day, that's my dad and I love him. And I feel in Future Forward, I think is based on this principle of if we're going to be trying to build for the future, we need to be able to say, I love and respect someone who maybe I disagree with in some ways, and I can work on those disagreements. I can gain an understanding on disagreements. I might not be able to change their mind, but I might be able to at least see their perspective. And I know I'm rambling a bit here, but I want to hearken to a good friend of mine who was the president of the Young Republicans in Lake County, which was very funny. When I was president of the Young Democrats, he was president of the Young Republicans because the Young Democrats did not understand how I was friends with him. It was a very weird behavior that they were seeing out of me, and plenty of sideways glances came my way. But it's because I don't need to agree with my friends on everything to still that person be my friend. And because we have that dynamic, I've been able to see and be able to experience firsthand, not necessarily from my friend, but from the people around him, his friends, his colleagues, his fellow Young Republicans, how they feel when we get sort of accusatory. Well, you must feel this way because you fall into this category. You are this way because of this, and you're this. You tell someone enough that they're a horrible person, they're going to stop trying to show you that they're not. You tell someone enough that you must be a monster, they'll start to be a monster because you told them. And so much of what we want to be Future Forward is to lead with positivity, to give people an opportunity to get involved, to say you don't need to worry about that partisanship that maybe is affecting your private life, affecting your personal life. You want to get involved and make a positive impact? Awesome. We have direct action for you to take part in. We have more secondary roles for you to take part in. If you just want to stay, come and join our meetings and come to our socials to have a community around you, that opportunity is there for you, and we want that for you.
So I want to say that those are all excellent points, and those are all beautifully just raw, natural, awesome, getting back to the basics ideals. And I do see that Tom, one of our co-founders, has a question in the chat. I do also really briefly want to highlight, Dan, when you and I spoke yesterday on the phone, preparing for this call today, we both aligned on this one point, and I really think it's important to put it out there for comment, that long gone are the days that Our disputes used to be not about the common goal we share. It was just simply about how do we get from here to there to achieve that goal. And that's what created some of those partisan divides only in the content, only in the how to. And then you could go back and break bread. The divide now is because that common goal has been erased on some issues. And so the common goal just doesn't even exist. And that's what creates such a deep divide. I mean, one of the dynamics, there's so many other dynamics that feed into it. But I do want to jump over to Tom. If Tom, you want to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Oh, sure. I'm popping questions into the chat just so as the discussion rolls on and we could let things go naturally or going in. But one of the things, Dan, you mentioned was welcoming that college Republican friend into the space. Now, whether or not they're still head of the college Republicans or it's a different college Republican that's now in Future Forward. But I wondered what you think you're doing or the group is doing that has created a welcoming space. How have you invited that conversation and that inclusion to show that we're trying to work together towards a common goal and it's not as partisan as sometimes it's made out to seem?
Mhm.
So in that specific case, he's no longer the college Republican president. He was previously, when he got to me, he had tried to get involved in some Democratic groups, and it did not take much for them to find, well, it's a college Republican president. He must be there to get our data, our information, et cetera, et cetera. I was lucky in the case of Nick. I was our field organizer in 2018. I was our, for Lake County, I was our executive director for the county party in 2020. And in 2020 is when I met Nick, who just needed to do something to help. He needed to do something to make an impact. And he came in and volunteered. And, as any organizer will tell you, if someone comes in the week before the election and wants to knock doors and is adamant they're going to knock doors, great. Let's get you a walk packet. Let's get you some literature. Let's get you out there. And that's really how I had come to meet him, was in those minor interactions. And it wasn't for, I think, 8-9 months later where he came back around and had said to me, well, I remember dealing with you in this other occupation. I figured I'd be welcome here. And I had plenty of people. I had my party chairman going, what are you doing? Why are you letting this happen? I go, I'm fine. There's nothing said at my meetings that I wouldn't put on a billboard. I have no problem with that. And for the longest time, I knew that he was a college Republicans president. No one else knew. I mean, this is a guy that was adamant that AOC should be running the party in 2021. So he definitely did not have the same beliefs that he had previously. He saw why he was involved in the Republicans was he felt at the time when he was 18, 19, 20 years old, that was the way to help people. That if you give people the Republican platform, that their lives will be better, and I just want to see people's lives be better. And then he realized that wasn't the case. What he saw as the Republican platform wasn't making the impact that he wanted, and he came over to our side and was a great member. Now he's since gotten a very high stress job with the county prosecutor's office over in Cuyahoga. He's moved to Mayfield Heights. He's getting married. I can't fault him for taking priority over all those things, over getting coming to all of our meetings. But he's still someone who calls me all the time to say, well, how can I get involved? What do you need from me? What can I do? And it truly just came from not caring about anything that came before. You're in the room, you want to be here, you're adamant you want to be here. Great, let's get you an opportunity. And that's so much of what I try to focus with Future Forward. And I know we're trying to do that same in Cuyahoga with the Cuyahoga chapter. Is it's not about the personal reasons why you're there necessarily. Those motivations are there and they're strong, and that's great. It's a lot more on, you want to make an impact. Let's find the way to make an impact that matters for you.
I love that. You just briefly mentioned there's a Cuyahoga County chapter.
Yes.
What do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah. So when Lake County was pretty much determining that our membership was determining that they did not want to charter with the Ohio Young Democrats any longer. A lot of just empty promises of support that just weren't there. And a lot of people felt that, why are we doing this when we just care about our own, part of the state anyways. At the same time, Cuyahoga had just rechartered with the Ohio Young Democrats in that same year, 2024. And when it was explained, like, hey, we're probably going to go this different route, leadership said, okay, that we're in, we're in with you, let's go. And for the first probably third of the year, that's been kind of the rebranding, restructuring, making sure that we're building everything back from square one. We're not taking resources from the state and repurposing them. We're starting from square one. Cuyahoga has done a great job in getting acclimated. They were present at Cleveland Pride just a few weeks ago, just 2.5 weeks ago. We've been present where we can in the community. We've been, getting our boots on and doing what we got to do. But also, I mean, I can talk about Cuyahoga. I can also say today that there's one chapter that will be coming online here in the next month or so. Also here in Northeast Ohio, and another chapter that we've had some preliminary discussions with in terms of just making sure that they are getting what they want out of this deal. And I mentioned chapters. I mentioned that we're growing. We're more so just giving people the opportunity. When we first switched over, we had plenty of people reaching out to me. I got a lot of phone calls. What's going on? What is this? Can I jump in? And I had to keep saying to people, not right now and no. We'll talk about this at a later date. And now those conversations are coming around to, hey, if you really want to, you can. We're not doing this as a way to replace something else. We're not doing this in a way to supplant something else. We are providing opportunities for people to be responsive to their communities. And particularly up here in Northeast Ohio, as anyone who has looked at election results in the last 8-10 years can tell you, when there is a lot more red up here where we live, we lose. And when we get a lot more purple and we get a little more blue up here, we win handedly. And we want to make sure that we're focusing here in Northeast Ohio. We want to make sure that our chapter is able to focus in their hometowns and in their communities. And Cuyahoga is doing a really great job of that. I'm sure if any of you are members of your local Democratic club, you will or have already seen one of our Cuyahoga board members stop by your local Dem club meeting, trying to make sure that people know, hey, we're here, but also, hey, our door's open. Obviously, you're committing your time where you can, but for people that want to get involved and want a gateway and want a way for young people to, get involved and be around other young people, we're here for you.
That's super interesting. I would love to circle back to that.
Sure.
But first, Sue has her hand up and definitely wants to jump in. So I just want to make sure, give her that space.
Thank you, Tom. And as we kind of create, I guess, the rhythm of this call, I appreciate that. I do want to jump in. And I am so involved in our Democratic Party, and clearly I've made no secret that my values align with the Democratic Party's values and principles. But I have always created a space in my personal being and professionally and politically for, like you, Dan, for anybody who's willing to have a conversation and anybody who's willing to work towards achieving a shared goal, so that we can achieve that. And I think I know as a candidate last year for a large race, what drew me most into, Dan, you and your close network of friends and colleagues, was that permission, if you will, to be authentic, to show up authentically how you are, sincerely and genuinely, without the same, pre-packaged messaging modems, and to display yourself either as a person or as a candidate in like the most sincerity for your values. And creating that space was so refreshing for me. Being a candidate can feel extremely isolating. You could feel very much just kind of on the go and you're going through motions that are prescribed on some level, although there is a certain level of trust because it's aligned values with the party. But what I liked about Dan, you and your close network was that you embrace differences. You don't necessarily disingenuously agree with differences, but you embrace them. You at least recognize them and give them that appropriate time and attention so that we could together work towards something better than we have right now. And so that we can leave this polarization behind because communities are suffering. People are suffering. I know we fast touched on, the news, and I always keep in my head and heart and my prayers the people, especially the innocent people who are impacted in so many awful ways when we decide that as a country it's time to go to war or to attack or to defend an attack, for any of our interests. But I think now more than ever in the heat of all of this, that every day feels like it gets just a little worse, although it feels like it can't get any worse. It keeps getting worse. This is the time that we need to come together as a people, as a community. And this is where we have to have these conversations to create a better space moving forward. So thank you.
I appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
Mhm.
And it's in all aspects. With when I was a Young Dems president, and one thing left out of my bio was the year that Future Forward, the determination of creating Future Forward last year. I also served as the OYD vice president. And that sort of mentality is what I really tried pushing with all of our chapters, which was, listen, people are going to have their motivations. People are going to have their reasons. The world is going to be scary. There's going to be problems and challenges you're going to face. Try your best to make sure that you're a home for people. And when you have challenges and you have problems, come and talk up, go up the chain. Let's see what we can do to try to address that for you. Because there's a lot of stress for everyone right now in so many aspects of their lives. Whatever we can do to reduce that, let's try to do that to be effective.
Dan, if I could go back to your point, some of your ethos in why you're leading Future Forward is that kindness approach, the welcoming, finding a place where people maybe aren't feeling accepted. Laura posted in the chat about how data is showing that more young voters are registering as independents.
Yes.
And I think this approach you strongly believe in is going to welcome those in there, maybe not register as Democrats, but they need to find values that align with them. Can you elaborate more on how you're using this approach in the wake of some of these values that are difficult to reconcile with friends in a time of social media where their support for a specific party means maybe a strong difference in rights of people or some of those things where that support, it makes it difficult to bridge that gap sometimes.
I try to lean into it with an inquisitive mind and try to always ask, so why exactly? So much of politics has become the what. I support this. I'm against this. It's the finality of this. Everything's ending with a period. Every statement is a period. That's it. It's done. I care about the why. I care about the comma. I care about everything that's going to come after it. Why do you feel that way? How do you think this is going to help? When we get into any sort of disagreement in society, it should always be looked at as, okay, this person has a different perspective than me, has a different belief than me. Let me figure out why that is. And in finding out why that is, you're going to find out why that differing point of view exists. And that doesn't necessarily mean they're a bad person because they think differently than you. That just means that they may have different information than you do. They may have the correct information. You might have the wrong information. You might have the right information. They might have the incorrect information. In discussing that why, and I know Sue touched on it with, previous, I'd go as far as saying in 2006, I remember watching a C-SPAN debate on what the United States should do in terms of public funding for schools. How much? Where should it go? There was no discussion on the House floor or on the Senate floor about phasing out public schools as we've seen in some states. We saw actual debates on, well, if we're going to give this money, this is where it needs to go. This is where, these are the communities we need to directly focus on. These are the types of issues we need to address. That's the why. In just saying, I don't like the state of public schools in America, sure, I don't like it. I'm a product of public schools. I hate my current school district. It is a cesspool. I'd like a significant amount of change to come to it. Does that mean I want to burn the school district to the cinders and then rebuild it from there? No, it doesn't. But that's what happens when we speak in finalities. I don't like this. I do like this. I don't support this. I do support this. We need to understand that so many people, specifically young people who are saying, I don't want to identify as a Republican. I don't want to identify as a Democrat. They want to exist in the gray. They want to exist in the space in between and outside of. And there's so much to say that the Democratic Party wants to be a big tent, right? We hear it every election. We're the big tent party. Everyone's allowed. Everyone's able to join up. But I've been told by my party I'm too much of a Republican, though I'm to the left of them on most topics and issues. I've heard and I've seen plenty of young people be chased out of rooms verbally because they're told, well, you don't agree with what we see as the party, but you want to win elections and you want to be a big tent and you want everyone to feel included, but not if you disagree with us on maybe 5% of topics. So much of appealing to that independent registration. And truly, I mean, the thing to understand here in the state of Ohio, at least, and in many other states, the way you register with a party is convoluted. Here in the state of Ohio, the way that you register with a party is you vote in that party's primary. It's an open system. I could change my affiliation to Republican in May of next year if I wanted to. I could change it to independent if I wanted to. If libertarians have a primary ballot I'm not aware of, I could change it to libertarian if I want to. Differently in the state of Texas, you do it when you register to vote. So that's where I have to look at that data. If we're looking specifically at the state of Ohio, neither party has really had a strong primary system in the last, let's be honest here, outside of the Senate primaries when JD and Bernie were there, you really didn't have real draw to say, let me come out to vote in that election. Let me declare as a member of that party. And that's where we see turnout being down, right? We don't, as a party, welcome challenges of opinion and challenges of stances. Republicans have the same issue. How often are well-meaning, very hardworking Republican elected officials called a rhino because they had the audacity to reach across the aisle and say, hey, your community, my community, both are having the same problem. Let's address it. And if I can compliment anyone here, I'll compliment Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez because she has won me around in the last, handful of years. And I'll compliment my own Congressman, Dave Joyce, who's worked with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on numerous topics and issues because they can work together, because they see a way that they can help their shared communities. Dave Joyce is called a rhino every single day. He's very Republican. I worked in that office when I was in college because that was the only place that would call me back for an internship. He's very much Republican, and yet it's called a rhino because that party sees a very isolated view. And Democratic side, we don't necessarily have that name or that label yet. It's coming probably. It'll be applied to me. But so much of what we can do is get away from that mentality of, well, you're not perfect, so we don't want you. Bernie Sanders got that label. Well, he's not really a Democrat. He's an independent. And in 2016, so many people who came out in support for the first time, a candidate who got involved in a primary for the first time, who registered with a party for the first time, didn't get what they wanted and then were vilified for it. Why would they come back? Right? We have to always be willing to open our arms to anyone that says, I want to be involved. I want to make an impact. And whether you agree with them on everything or not, you got to give them an opportunity. And I think what I've been for the last couple years, I can point to more than a few occasions where I've gone to people and say, let me give you an opportunity. Let me give you a chance. Let me help you. And by helping you, you will help the organization. Some succeed, some fail. But we have to give opportunities. We have to try to give those people who are in the middle, who maybe don't see a necessarily home in either party, an opportunity to come into a party and make an impact. And I'll really calm down because the caffeine is starting to hit me.
I think Sue has some strong thoughts on the things you've said here. So
Well,
I'll let her.
I would just love to ask you to dig in a little bit more about your concept of the why, because to me and from where I sit, that is just music to my ears. I think Dan and some of the people on the call know my heart of hearts. I am a worker bee at nature. I am always immersing myself into meaningful connections and to work towards a shared or common goal on any front that I can. But the why is super important. To say that you're for public schools is one thing. To say that you support LGBTQ plus community is one thing. But the why, getting into that personal space is super important, not just for a shared life experience, but it's also for that super important to all humanity, that introspection, right? Like to know why you subscribe to what you subscribe to. You believe public schools are important because you put your children through public schools, or you believe public schools are important as someone with no children because you understand how it becomes that central nucleus of your community and allows it to go from a basic community into thriving. Or you support the LGBTQ plus community and its movement into equity and equality because you have a loved one that's in that community, or because you know what it feels like to be ignored or oppressed. Those are important pieces, not just in the talking point, but in the introspection. So when you get inside of yourself and you discern and you decide where you are in the why, I love the why, then you could be not only more confident, but better equipped to reach or to strive towards those goals. I do want to say that, in preparing for today, I discerned into my own space, and it occurred to me that many young people, you're frustrated, right? You're just frustrated with the symbolic gestures and quite frankly, the slow progress. What would you say are the key areas where action, not just allyship, but action is most urgently needed so that we can rebuild the trust of you, the folks in Future Forward and, oncoming generations?
I don't know if there's a particular. I always say there is no silver bullet. There is no perfect answer of this. If you do this, this, and this, everything's going to be fixed. But I can say that there has been a generation of candidates who have done their best Barack Obama impression in terms of telling their story. And we tell Democratic candidates all the time, tell your story, tell people why they should support you. And it becomes a checklist of the same 5, 6 bullet points shuffled around. When we're talking about emphasizing the why, it's sure a personal story, but it's a personal story told with purpose. So a great example I'll use is Future Forward has made it a point, and when we were the Young Dems, we made it a point to be present and active and show true care and love to the LGBT community. I don't tell this story publicly often, but I'll tell it here today. My first time at a central committee meeting, the committee that essentially governs your county or state party, I watched as members, officers of the party had some comments following the 2016 election about the LGBTQ plus community that were denigrating and that were negative. And I saw people leave the room, people who were friends of mine. And I'd go back and I'd ask what, What happened? What was the thing that had you leave? Not realizing, being oblivious. And they told me they didn't feel welcome in the party. And they felt like they didn't feel welcome in that room and they didn't feel safe in that room. And that word safe bothered the hell out of me for years. Those people who said those things are no longer involved in the county party. And I can say quite confidently that the reason why we have made sure that we have a presence at Pride is because I saw firsthand where the why had gone off the rails. The why as to why those people saying those things in the room 3 months prior were soliciting for the votes, the same people they said were the cause of the problem. If we didn't care about these people, we'd win the election. Sounds familiar when you hear the 2024 election too. When we want to attack trans people, like they're somehow the root cause of Kamala losing that election when she's not, when it's not. We wanted to make sure that we were present, friendly, and welcoming because we saw that that wasn't what the party was when I came in and when other people came in. That's my why. Plenty of people have their own whys. And if we get into those conversations, you may disagree with someone, but if you can understand, okay, they have a purpose behind it. There's a reason why it is that way. You get along with it a little bit easier. I used to, another example I can give is if you start a new job and you come into the office and it's a new environment to you, right? And all of a sudden you're noticing things and going, well, why is it that way? Why are we doing this process this particular way? I can look at my time at the Lake County Board of Elections for an example and say, why are we preparing ballots this one way for scanning? This was then explained to me. And then it goes, okay, building on that and understanding where those issues came into play, and understanding where problems existed. Can we work on a system that is even more efficient and appreciate the problems of the past? Yes, great. And we can move forward. It's understanding the why that gets us that way. It's understanding the why of why someone says, hey, I support public education, but I don't like the way the schools are being done now. Or I'll use a different example and I'll say, I support infrastructure investment, but I don't like the fact that the construction is impacting my day negatively. Okay, well, you can't have it both ways. You can't have a refurbished infrastructure and not have to deal with the fact that it takes some time to do so. Why does that impact you? Well, my commute to work is 85 minutes already, and this makes it a 2-hour commute to work. Okay, let's maybe address the other issue, right? In understanding a why, you can understand someone's opinion better. You can address their opinion. You can hopefully work together to find a solution. So much of that is what we need in our day-to-day lives going forward if we want to move to a better future.
Dan, I hear, so well-informed, solution-oriented. I really love hearing this from you and the direction of Future Forward. I think I heard a potential change in idea for how you think you can get people more involved when it comes to voting. Maybe
Sure.
if it's an open primary, or what other ideas do you have that engages more voters that you're trying to implement now to encourage that change?
So I come from the school of thought that every position on the ballot benefits in some way from a primary, except at the very top. Very top, it can be detrimental. I'm not going to ignore that. It's beneficial to the voters to be able to have their opinion, what have you. But I've lost membership following a presidential primary before. People feel like they don't want to get involved. Their team lost effectively, and they don't want to do anything. I've lost a significant amount of members after the 2020 primary due to the craziness of that and people not understanding things. And in terms of what we're trying to do to get more involvement there, we're pushing the idea of understanding what those down ballot races mean, right? How is this going to impact your life? How does this job actually do it? County commissioner really doesn't have much say in reproductive rights. So maybe not talk about that, but instead let's talk about how county commissioner impacts the quality of your water, the quality of your shoreline, the quality of your parks, your roads, your county services that maybe you rely on public transit, having an understanding of that maybe motivates someone who utilizes that, who's had issues with that in the past, to say, okay, I want to care more about this race. So we've done in the past is have interviews with candidates and put that out and say, what is your understanding as a candidate of what you're going to be able to do if you're elected? And then with that understanding of what the job is able to do, how can you apply it? But in terms of, getting people to show up to the polls, we have such a problem in society today where people have this belief of, well, based on where I live, my vote doesn't matter, right? Someone who lives in Lancaster, Ohio, could say, yeah, I'm a Democrat. I'm a lifelong Democrat. I believe in the cause so much, but I don't vote because, well, my vote doesn't matter. The Republicans are going to win my county anyways. Okay, but what about the presidential election? What about a Senate election? What about a congressional election? What do you mean they're going to win my county anyways? We have people that don't understand how elections work in this country. I bemoan how Republicans have co-opted this point, but we aren't teaching civics in a way that is digestible and retainable for people. And I don't want to say it's a young person problem either, because when I was at the Board of Elections, I had people who believed that I could see how they voted. No, I have no idea who. When I see the ballot, I don't have any identifiable mark to say, oh, this is Mary Jo Sue's ballot. I don't have that. I just have, okay, this is, scan it. All right, it's an official ballot of ours. Here it is, run it through a tabulator. Don't care. I don't care who you vote for. It doesn't matter to me. It just matters to me that you voted. I think we need to do a better job of informing people how elections are administered. I think we need to do a better job of having people understand what they're actually voting for. Plenty of people thought Donald Trump was an anti-war president. Surprise. Not really. So we allow people to be less than informed because we aren't doing the hard work of having the conversations about, again, going back to it, the why. Why is it important that you're voting in this race? It can't be a definitive statement of my people are nice and the other side is mean, and that's why you should vote for my side. It should be, here's what they think is going to happen if they get elected. Here's what we think is going to happen if our person gets elected. Which sounds like a better deal to you? And I've given this in an interview before where I've said people love our issues. They love the Democratic side. They love progressive issues and the stances of it and where we are with things. Look at it in this way. Reproductive rights in the state of Ohio. Easy vote. Easy vote. We won that by a mile. Recreational use of cannabis. Won it by a mile. Eliminating this weird Republican attempt at removing the public vote, the public voice in referendum votes. We won that very easily. At the same time, in that fall election in 2023, Republicans won a lot of races where issues 1 and 2 passed by a mile. People aren't connecting with the why. They're just hearing my side's good, the other side's bad, and of course you're going to say that because you're wearing that pin. We need to get away from that and move as close as we can to a space of brutal honesty, even if it's going to cost us some votes. We don't need to lie to people to gain support. We need to make it clear, like, this is what we believe. These are the rigid points. Here are the soft points. Come be a part of it if it makes sense to you. And I think in most cases on our side, we'll win that fight.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate those comments. I think Sue might have one final thought here before we get to our hour. And so, Sue, would you like to offer those?
Great, thank you. Yeah, I think it's a good closing thought because, Dan, when you speak about the barriers that we face in encouraging voter participation, and when there's those shared assumptions that my county is going one direction or another direction, it just really draws to my mind the quote by Carter Woodson when he says, if you control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his actions. I'm going to repeat it. When you control a man's thinking, you don't have to worry about his actions. It's so perfectly relevant to this and so much that's happening in our world. That sense of hopelessness and helplessness, or that your voice or your vote doesn't matter because you are already told how to think about it. You are already told your county is red or your county is blue. It is so powerful and impactful to be a warrior of your thoughts and your mind and your intent is so super important. If I could leave anyone listening today or in the future with that parting thought, and I do have to give it due credit. It was said this morning at Bethany Baptist Church on East 105th Street by a good friend of mine when she was speaking before the congregation, and it just so perfectly fit here. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Do you have a final piece of action for everyone on the call today? Like, what can we do to help move forward?
As our the Alliance Commissioner Aaron Fisher says, you can't fast forward to a better future, so you might as well try to build one. I'll say best thing I could ask from everyone is Tom's done a great job of putting in the comments links to our Facebook, our Instagram. Go follow us. Go follow the Future Forward Cuyahoga County. Get involved. If you know people who are looking for a way to get involved locally. Our next meeting in Lake County is going to be on July 15th in Paynesville. I believe Cuyahoga is looking to have theirs. Normally it's the first Thursday of the month, but as everyone I think knows, the first Thursday of the month of July is July 3rd, and that's a pretty hard day to put any kind of meeting or gathering. So they'll be having something as well. But get involved, and even if you don't want to get involved with us and you just want to take what I've said today and take it to heart and make it actionable, find out the whys of the people in your life that maybe you have a disagreement with. Find out what motivates them. Find out why they maybe have disagreements with you, and see what you can do to try to bridge that, and see what you can do to try to have a better understanding. And if I can say one last point for it, in general, we as Democrats, I think, need to do a better job. Point I've made already of being the big tent party that we claim to be. So as we're still in Pride Month, I touched on it briefly. Trans people are not the villains, no matter how much certain people in culture want it to be that way. We need to do better as a party and as people. And I won't just limit it in that conversation. I'll say it in all conversations. Muslims are not our enemies automatically. Jewish people are not our enemies automatically. No one, because of their cultural differences or who they are, is your enemy. At the end of the day, we're all going to end up, the bodies that we have are going to all end up being carbon recycled into the system. So just try to be loving and kind where you can be.
And I really appreciate that. I think we all share that sentiment that we really need to care for everyone. And also as a segue, our own next meeting is July 6th, where we will have our next guest also moving forward. Thank you, Dan, for being here today. We really appreciate your time, your energy, your enthusiasm. I look forward to personally moving the future forward. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Tom, Sue, Laura, all of you. Thank you for this time. Please stay hydrated. I guess that should have been my last note. It's hot. It's
Yes.
humid. We're in tropical conditions in Ohio.
Yes.
Global warming is past the point. The climate has changed and the world's on fire. Please stay hydrated. Thank you.
Great message.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
Thank you, Dan, very much.
We'll look for this posted on YouTube within the week, and we can't wait to talk again soon. Thank you all.